بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
حميم تنزيل الكتاب من الله العزيز الحكيم ما خلقنا السماوات والأرض وما بينهما إلا بالحق وأجل مسمى والذين كفروا عما أنذروا معرضون.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. We continue inshallah ta'ala with Surah Al-Ahqaf, and inshallah ta'ala the session will be a short one inshallah, but we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless it for all of us, and the barakah, the blessings of the Quran, there's no like of it. And whatever means, whatever time that a person spend with the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is the most blessed time, seeking rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. Verse number 15, inshallah. Verse number 15 and 16, as you see here in front of us, from the Tafseer of Imam Sa'di rahimahullah. I would recite them first, inshallah, for those who are memorizing it. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم ووصينا الإنسان بوالديه إحسانا حملته أمه كرها ووضعته كرها وحمله وفصاله 30 شهرا حتى إذا بلغ أشده وبلغ 40 سنة قال رب أوزعني أن أشكر نعمتك التي أنعمت علي وعلى والدي وأن أعمل صالحا ترضاه وأصلح لي في ذريتي إني تبت إليك وإني من المسلمين أولئك الذين نتقبل عنهم أحسن ما عملوا ونتجاوز عن سيئاتهم في أصحاب الجنة وعد الصدق الذي كانوا يوعدون. The first ayah, and we have enjoined upon man to his parents good treatment. His mother carried him with hardship and gave birth to him with hardship. And his gestation and weaning period is 30 months. He grows until when he reaches maturity and reaches the age of 40 years, he says, My Lord, enable me to be grateful to your favor, which you have bestowed upon me and upon my parents, and to work righteousness of which you will approve, and make righteous for me my offspring. Indeed, I have repented to you, and indeed, I am of the Muslims. So, this ayah, after what has been previously mentioned about al-istiqamah, about being steadfast upon the tawheed and the righteous good deed. So, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned al-istiqamah, tawheed, the oneness of worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to be steadfast upon this, then after that, He gave the wasiyah, the command to be righteous towards the parents, which is always or repeated in the Quran in many times. وَقَضَى رَبُّكَ أَلَّا تَعْبُدُوا إِلَّا إِيَّاهُ وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decreed upon you that you worship none but Him and be kind to your parents. Be righteous towards your parents. So this is to show the rights of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the rights of the human beings, and the most among all of the human beings that have rights upon a person is their parents. And also it's related to the believers and the disbelievers. And some mentioned that this had a sabab or a reason why it was revealed in Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu when his parents, they became believers. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. So, but here, let's read inshallah ta'ala the tafsir of Imam Sa'di rahimahullah. He says, هذا من لطفه تعالى بعباده. This is from the lutf of Allah. The lutf of Allah is we know this from before, the mercy of Allah that reaches the believers in a subtle way, that they don't see it coming because it's a matter of unseen to them. What they are upon is the obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the promise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the truth. So when someone is upon the tawheed and upon being steadfast upon the deen of Allah, then the mercy of Allah is reaching that individual. And the rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this life and in the hereafter. In this life is with al-istiqamah, with the steadfastness, and in the hereafter in the Jannah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from the moment of death. So this is the lutf of Allah. But هذا من لطفه تعالى بعباده, towards his ibad. The ibad, the special ibad, the believers among them. وشكره للوالدين, and his gratefulness to his parents. And وصى الأولاد وعهد إليهم. From the lutf of Allah, from the gratefulness that should be there, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala وصى. And as we talked about the wasiyah, al-wasiyah comes in many different meanings or different contexts, and one of the famous one that is used for the bequest or the will, when someone is dying and want to make a wasiyah for what to be, how the wealth to be distributed after he departs from this life. But this is where a specific meaning of the wasiyah in the fiqh context. But here the wasiyah comes into the meaning of the command, something that is obligatory to be established. And that's what the wasiyah is. The wasiyah, that means it's a matter of an obligation upon those who would receive the wasiyah, the will, to execute it and to fulfill it. So then the word then wasiyah becomes in the meaning when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wassa, and it's mentioned in the Quran in many times, that this is such an important command from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that leaves the person with it till the end of one's life. So, and that's the continuity of it and the obligations that comes with it, and trusting them with it, right? When someone says, "Usika bikada," that means I entrust you with this. Usika bitaqwa Allah. I entrust you with the taqwa of Allah. That means be upon the taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When someone is a wasi on someone else, that means he's in charge of one's wealth and things like this. So when we say وصينا الإنسان, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that means he commands the human beings and entrusts them with it, and he will be asked about it. And وصى الأولاد وعهد إليهم. عهد إليهم, entrust them as a covenant, and they will be asked about it. And يحسنوا, that they are kind and doing good إلى والديهم, to their parents. بالقول اللطيف, with gentle speech. والكلام اللين, soft kalam and speech, and talk to them. وبذل المال, and giving them from one's money if they need, or to give them from one's money. والنفقة, and spending on them. وغير ذلك, and other than that, من وجوه الإحسان, all types of ihsan. This is not the only ways, but it's something that is have no limits to it, as long as it's ihsan, goodness towards them without sins. ثم نبه على ذكر السبب الموجب لذلك. So ووصينا الإنسان بوالديه إحسانا. And ihsana here is in such a way that it's a noun that shows that this is whatever comes under the category of al-ihsan. This is the wasiyah of Allah. This is the obligation. So nobody would think that it's confined to one thing or the other, or at least I'm not doing harm to them, or they're pleased with me or not. So the word ihsanan here, and the significance of it being noun, it's such an important meaning here that should be registered in the right way in the hearts of the believers, because this is without any limits. And that's why when he mentioned some of the examples here, this is just examples, right? And that's why al-ihsan is that means is whatever hasan, whatever goodness with dealing with them. This is what a believer should be upon in their lifetime and after they pass away. So he says, then he mentioned a sabab, why the reason for that, al-mujib lidhalik, that makes this as an obligation. حملته أمه كرها ووضعته كرها, فذكر ما تحملته الأم من ولدها, mentioned what the mother bears and carries of the burden of giving birth. وما قاسته من المكاره, what she went through the difficulties, dislikes, وقت حملها. No one would like to bear the difficulty of having a child, meaning the pregnancy and what comes with it and the actual giving birth. ثم مشقة ولادتها, then the difficulty of giving birth, المشقة الكبيرة, this huge مشقة and difficulty and the pain that she goes through just to give birth to that child, to that human being. ثم مشقة الرضاع, then the المشقة is the difficulty, is the hardship of breastfeeding وخدمة الحضانة and serving the حضانة, the child care that he needs when he is not able to defend himself, when he's not able to bring any benefit to himself, he does not have any means of goodness whatsoever. It's all from the mother that she bear the child for 9 months, she give birth, she breastfeed the child, she take care of the child, cleaning him, every aspect of goodness that she does, that is, it involves mashaqqa, involves difficulty. And especially when these difficulties, for the most part, are made by the mother while she is enjoying, while she is smiling. She's not showing that she is disturbed by it, or why this is the command of Allah for me to do this. This is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made in the hearts of the mothers, which teaches us something, that if a person is commanded to do something by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a person should do it with goodness, with being pleased with it, with showing all kinds of comfort. Why? Because this is the command of Allah. And that reminds us of how the mother is towards her children when she gives birth, and how she's would breastfeed them, being content and being pleased with such a thing, even though that it has physical mashaqqa, physical hardship, with lack of sleep and the weakness of the body and all kinds of other things. He says, وَلَيْسَتِ الْمَذْكُورَاتُ مُدَّةٌ يَسِيرَةٌ ساعة أو ساعتين. What's mentioned here is not something that happens for a short period of time, 1 hour or 2 hours. وإنما ذلك مدة طويلة. Rather, this is a long time. حملته أمه كرها, that means with dislike, meaning with hardship. ووضعته كرها, and she gave birth to him كرها. وحمله وفصاله 30 شهرا. So it's not a short period of time, that the الحمل is the time of the pregnancy, وفصاله, and the weaning, both 30 شهرا, 30 months. للحمل 9 أشهر ونحوها, to the حمل 9 months or so, والباقي للرضاع, and the rest is for breastfeeding. يقول هذا الغالب, this is الغالب, that I mentioned the norm, or this is what most people are upon like this. And that's why ويستدل بهذه الآية, this ayah is an evidence with the other ayah in Surah Al-Baqarah, والوالدات يرضعن أولادهن حولين كاملين, that the mothers, they breastfeed their children for 2 complete years, أن أقل مدة الحمل 6 أشهر. That proves that the minimum time of pregnancy can be 6 months, because if the weaning takes 2 years, then whatever is left from the 30 months is only 6 months. So why this is significant in some situations where, and this has happened at the time of the Sahaba radiallahu anha, if a woman give birth after 6 months, can someone argue that this is not from, say for example, there was marriage, and after 6 months she gave birth? Can someone then have any doubt or claims that this happened before marriage? No. If it's 6 months or above, that means this is valid pregnancy that happened after marriage. So أن أقل مدة الحمل 6 أشهر، لأن مدة الرضاع وهي 2 إذا سقطت منها 2 بقي 6 أشهر مدة الحمل. Because of the ayah, if the breastfeeding time, the weaning time is 2 years, then you subtract that from the 30 months, then whatever is left is 6 months. So this is, again, حملته أمه, this is why the wasiyah. This is why the wasiyah towards the parents. And mentioning here first the woman, because the mother has more rights and more kindness to be shown to the mother. And it doesn't mean that less kindness to be shown to the father, but both. But the mother is more. حملته أمه كرها ووضعته كرها وحمله وفصاله 30 شهرا حتى إذا بلغ أشده. Then he says حتى إذا بلغ أشده, till he reaches his أشد. Al-Ashud is the time of strength, right? So Al-Fisal is Al-Fitam, which is weaning, and Al-Fasl comes when someone is separated. So the child is not in need of his mother as much as he was before the 2 years, before the weaning. Before the weaning, he cannot sustain his life without the mother by the will of Allah. And then after the time of weaning, then he grows by the care of the mother and the father, حتى إذا بلغ أشده, till he reaches the time of his strength. الأشده from الأمر الشديد, the amr that is intense or strong. أي نهاية قوته وشبابه وكمال عقله, the end of his قوة, power and youth, and the complete of his عقل and reason, which is the age of 40 years. وبلغ 40 سنة, till he reaches the age of 40 years. قال ربي أوزعني, then he makes the dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. First of all, this 40 years is not significant in the sense that this is a time when people, before that, they're not responsible for their actions, and now they're responsible for their actions. Of course not. But this is where a person reaches the complete state of mind and strength, and then after that, things start to decline. But the significance of that age is once a person reaches that age, and the dua that is mentioned afterwards, usually, and again, the Quran talks about the norm, that the person is married and they have children. So now they get to realize the rights of the parents. Before that, they might be ignorant about it because they didn't experience what their parents experienced or went through. But now they have children, so now the rights of the parents becomes more clear to them. And the believers, of course, they don't have to wait for something like this to realize when it's too late, but rather to be always, at all times, fulfilling the commands of Allah, regardless whether we feel or not, whether we see what's the big deal or not, as some people might think. So, but this is why the ayah says, then when he reaches the 40 years, he says, قال ربي أوزعني. He would say, my Lord, أوزعني. What أوزعني? أي ألهمني ووفقني. That al-i'az here is when someone is inspired. That means the matter is easy for the person. And guide me. أن أشكر نعمتك التي أنعمت علي وعلى والدي. That I'm grateful to your favor and the favor that you bestowed upon me and upon my parents. أي نعم الدين ونعم الدنيا. That means the ni'am, the favors of the deen and the favors of the dunya, the worldly matters. He says, وشكره بصرف النعم, and to be grateful to Allah, to be grateful to these favors of Allah by صرف النعم, by directing these favors في طاعة مسديها, in the obedience of the one that bestowed it upon him, وموليها, the one that gave it to the person, ومقابلة منته بالاعتراف والعجز عن الشكر, and to oppose and to face these favors of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by acknowledging it, that it's from Allah, and with being unable to be grateful. That humbleness that a person would have, that he's unable to be or to fulfill the perfect gratefulness to Allah. This by itself is being grateful. Not to say that I did my act of being grateful to Allah. والاجتهاد في الثناء بها على Allah, and to make ijtihad, an effort, so that the person is praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because of these favors. As you see here, that he mentioned 3 things that makes the person grateful to Allah with the favors that Allah bestowed upon us. Number 1 is al-i'tiraf, to acknowledge that with one's heart and one's speech that this is only from Allah. Number 2, to have ajz, even though al-ajz is not a good thing, which is having the inability to do something, but the feel that a person is so humble that he's not able to fulfill it in the most perfect way. But knowing the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most merciful, He accepts from us whatever these deficient actions and deficient means of showing our gratefulness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Otherwise, if a person spend all of his life and day and night without sleep in constant ibadah, in constant gratefulness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he would not even fulfill the rights of these favors. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, nothing is the like of Him, and He's the most merciful subhanahu wa ta'ala. But He subhanahu wa ta'ala is pleased and accept from the person to have this shukr with whatever limitations we have. So to have al-ajz, to have this inside of oneself as one of the pillars of being grateful, is to show and to acknowledge that you're not able to fulfill it in the most perfect way. والاجتهاد في الثناء بها على Allah. And number 3 is to put the effort and to struggle to keep on praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because of these favors, and one of which is to stop complaining about things. You know, a person have millions favors of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and one thing is bothering him. And that's what the meaning of إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لِرَبِّهِ لَكَنُودٌ. That the human being is kanud. He only remembers the bad things. And then that's what occupies us. Well, the fact that you're breathing the air, the fact that you are a believer, the fact that you are a Muslim. I mean, so many favors of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there's no one can able to count them even. So these are the three pillars of shukr. We'll stop here, inshallah. We'll stop here, inshallah, even though we're in the middle of the ayah here. But because of the time, and we continue from where we stopped. And that's sometimes it's good, especially when we have a daily class like this with the Quran, so that we come tomorrow, inshallah ta'ala, in the class with reading what we covered and carrying this in our heart, because the dars of the tafsir, and this is an advice to myself and everyone, is a life changing by itself while the dars is going. So that means we have to have certain qualities in our hearts, and one of which is that purification of the heart and carrying some meanings in it so that we can benefit from it. So not just some information that we're getting and we'll apply it later. No, it's something that needs to be acknowledged immediately while we're listening to the verses of the Quran and the explanations of it. So hopefully, inshallah ta'ala, we'll remember where we stopped here, after mentioning the three pillars or the three means of showing the gratefulness to Allah. And then he talks about وَالنِّعَمْ عَلَى الْوَالِدَيْنِ. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.